I want to teach you some very common and useful phrases, but we're going to pay extra special attention to the preposition. And that's really what I want to quiz you on. I have these different phrases and I've taken out the preposition and I want to see if you can identify them, because this is when people will make very small, simple mistakes and they may use the incorrect preposition. So that's what I mean when I say fine tune your speaking fluency. And if you are someone who enjoys building your vocabulary, learning new words and phrases, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about trying to help you reach your fluency goals. So the first thing I want to mention, if you would like to get a copy of these lesson notes right here, you can join our email community. If you are already a part of our email community, check your inbox because I have sent them to you or they're on the way. So let's just go ahead and begin with our first question. And I would love it if you participate in the lesson, write your answer in the chat, in the comments, even if you're watching this later. This is, in fact, Interactive English. I want you to take part in this lesson. I almost said it just as I was telling you this because, yeah, I thought this would be a good way to start out, because I hope that you will take part in this lesson. And there is a specific phrase that I want to focus on, even, that the preposition is part of this. And I think this is a pretty common phrase, and I see a lot of great answers. And the answer is in. I want you to take part in this lesson. To take part in something means to participate, to be involved in it. And when I do these lessons, I love it when you take part in these lessons. I want you to take part in these lessons because that's what I think is really going to help you make these phrases a part of your active memory, because you're participating. You are involved in the learning process. You're taking part in the learning process. I feel like the more I say the phrase, it's just going to burn right here into your memory. Take part in, take part in. But excellent. Great answers, Julia, Lolly, Zoe. I'll try to throw out some shout outs as we go through this. Here's the next one. And the way that I wanted to present this question is, showing some news headlines. And I've basically blocked out the missing word, the preposition. And these are real headlines that I've gotten, just last week. Why are women more sensitive the cold than men? Or when talking about stocks, these 10 oil stocks are the most and least sensitive price swings. And finally, fear of the unknown. Are you more sensitive uncertainty than others? So in each of these headlines, it's the same word that's missing. And again, we're talking about the phrase, I'll go ahead, sensitive. And I think when it comes to these prepositions, I would always say, just go with what feels right. If you're having a conversation, I understand if you pause and you're trying to think of the correct verb or noun or adjective. Those are descriptive words. But when it comes to these prepositions, I would just say what one feels right. Even if you make a mistake, I think most people still understand what you're trying to say. But once again, that's when it comes back to fine-tuning your fluency. Because in each of these news headlines, the missing word is sensitive to. And I've underlined them right there. Well done, Daniel, Talal, Ava. You're sensitive to, are more sensitive to the cold than men, are the most and least sensitive to price swings. Are you more sensitive to uncertainty than others? And you might be sensitive to something. Now, one thing that you may be thinking is, I know the word sensitive, but I have heard it being used with other prepositions as well. And this is when I think it can be a little confusing, because you might have one verb or noun that could be followed with a number of different prepositions and the meaning may change. So just quickly, I want to look at the difference and talk about sensitive to versus sensitive about. And I just chose these to give you an example, and I took the meaning. I believe this is from Collins Dictionary. So I'll just read it to you. If you are sensitive to other people's needs, problems, or feelings, you show understanding and awareness of them. So when I think of sensitive to something, I think of that awareness, and there may be some sort of change. Sensitive about, if you are sensitive about something, you are easily worried or offended when people are talking about it. So just because I'm giving you a word followed by a preposition, that does not mean that it's only going to be followed by this preposition. And I'm going to give you an example of this later on as well. So keep in mind, in this context right here, in these contexts, we're talking about sensitive to something. Here's the next one. I think we're starting out a little easy, and it's easy, and then it's going to get a little more difficult. So if I were to ask you, how are you going to react this video? And you see that thumbs up and thumbs down. And whether you give the video a like or a dislike, I appreciate any reaction. But I might be wondering this. How are you going to react this video? So we're talking about the verb react. Which word are you going to follow that with? You're going to react something. In this case, I'm asking you about the video. So I love it. I love it. All these people participating. Love it, love it, love it. So we're talking about to react to something. Great job, Bianca, Mohammed, Vidya, Zoe, Curious Ghost. Nice. So you react to something, and this is a pretty common phrase. So really think about this. And I know that I mentioned speaking, and in this activity, it's just more reading because I'm showing you the sentence. You can see it, and it does change a little bit because when you're speaking, again, you're going to use one. And even if you know, oh, react to this or react to that, sometimes I still hear these slight little speaking mistakes. And when I would tell people and point it out to them and show them what they said and say, okay, let's change this, people automatically, oh, okay, react to. I know this. So, of course, I hope that you react favorably to this video and you can hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. Here is the next one. And this is one that I think I hear that people have trouble with. So I'm just asking a random question. Can you see something? The background. And I'll tell you that the phrase that I'm really focusing on is the background. Because when I do some activities in my course in which people will describe a picture or talk about it, and sometimes they will talk about the background. They'll use this phrase, but I often hear people use the wrong word. So in this case, can you see something? The background. And the two that I think are kind of mixed up is either in, on, and at. And I see a variety of answers in the chat. So hopefully, again, this is one in which some of you will learn something new. When we're talking about the background, you're going to use in the background. What do you see in the background? Can you see anything in the background? Or if you're describing something like, oh, in the background, I can see this or that, and I notice these things in the background. So when we're talking about the background, just keep that in mind and say it to yourself, repeat it, in the background, in the background, in the background, and just try to keep reinforcing that. Now, I wanted to bring this up because it's fun. You may recognize pictures like this. They're called stereograms. You have this two-dimensional image, which when viewed correctly appears three-dimensional. And this was popular, I think, when I was younger, a long time ago, and you had to like loosen your eyes, and then you can see this image kind of comes out at you. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If you want to Pause it and see if you can see the image. But I'll tell you, it is a horse. If you're able to kind of just relax your eyes, you can see this horse will just appear in the background. All right, in the background. Keep that in mind. I like this picture. I saw this cat and I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to use this cat. Who is going to take care my cat while I'm away? I think when you see the question, and again, reading, listening, speaking, these are different skills. And right now, you're reading it, you can hear me, you're listening to it, and that does make it a little easier. But once again, I'm bringing this phrase up because I often hear people make speaking mistakes when they're using take care. So that is the phrase that I want to focus on. Who is going to take care my cat while I'm away? And once again, I just want you to try to burn this word into your memory. I'm going to give you the answer because I see so many correct answers. I appreciate those hearts. Love it. Take care of. You're going to take care of something or take care of someone. And you may use this phrase often when talking about pets or animals. Who's going to take care of my cat? Take care of my dog? Can somebody take care of my plants while I'm away and traveling? So you would take care of something or someone. And again, just say this phrase to yourself. Take care of, take care of, take care of. This is a collocation. These are three words that are used together to take care of something and someone. And this is my method. I'm just going to keep saying it. You hear me say it numerous times. Take care of, take care of, take care of. Because when you're having a conversation, I just want you to say, go with your gut. What feels right? But if you hear it enough, you get enough exposure, the next time you're talking, it's just going to come out. You're going to say take care of. How about this one? The decision is entirely to you. This is an idiomatic expression, and I wanted to point that out because, again, it's good to build your vocabulary. I do think this expression is quite common, so it's a good one to know. It's a good one to use, and you say something is to you. And you would use this when talking about a decision or a choice. So in this case, awesome, great job, everyone. You guys are rocking it today. The decision is entirely up to you. And if something is up to you, it basically means that the choice is yours to make. Should we do this? Should we do that? I say, well, it's up to you. What do you think we should do? It's up to you. I really don't care. It's up to you. And you might even say to someone, it's up to you to make the decision. And saying there is a choice to be made, but I am going to leave that decision up to you. And again, up to you, up to you, up to you. Just think about it, understand it, and this is a common one that you can actually use, I think, in daily conversations when you're talking to someone and you want to say that something is up to that person. How about this one right here? This is when I mentioned at the beginning, we talked about sensitive to and sensitive about. I have 3 blanks, but I'll go ahead and tell you that each one is different. So there are actually 3 different answers, and I want you to think about the situation, okay? This is like, let's say this is a conversation, even though maybe it's a bad conversation, but I'll just say I know that I have a limited amount of influence, you, because we only know each other through these English lessons, and I see you guys participating. I love it. Lolly, Stephanie, it's great to see everybody, but ultimately, I still hope that I have a positive influence, you. And of course, I would appreciate it if you write to me in the comments. I always love hearing from you and everybody else. And maybe you will do this unless you are under the influence another, maybe some other English coach. I don't know, but that last one is I just really tried to force it in there. But there are three different words that are missing. So that first one, have a limited amount of influence, you. The next one, a positive influence, you. And under the influence, you, another. So I think some of them are going to be easier than others because, like that last phrase, I think this is a common collocation. Under the influence, something or someone. But there are three different ones missing, and let's talk about them right now. So the answers, and again, I'll read it again with these prepositions. So the first one, I know I have a limited amount of influence over you. And I've highlighted the verb have as well. You have influence over someone. And if you have influence over someone, it's like you can control some of their actions, like what they will do in the future, specifically if you have influence over someone. And I think you could relate to this. I'm sure you know someone in which one person, whether it's a friend or a colleague, has influence over you or someone else, and they can kind of really control or even manipulate what's going on. So to have influence over someone. And I said that, I think I have a limited amount of influence over you because we only know each other through these English lessons. But ultimately, I still hope that I have a positive influence on you and that it affects you in some way. And I would say these are some common collocations in talking about somebody having a good influence on someone else, a bad influence on someone else, a positive influence on someone, and a negative influence on someone. So think about it being used with those adjectives: good, bad, positive, negative. And of course, I hope that, I have a positive influence on you, that, that it has a positive effect on you. I would appreciate it if you write to me in the comments. Maybe you'll do this unless you are under the influence of another. Now, under the influence of someone or something, a lot of times you may hear this being used like something. For example, a common usage of this phrase is under the influence of alcohol. Somebody was driving under the influence of alcohol. So under the influence of someone or something. So this is another example where you have influence, but it could be followed by a variety of prepositions. And this is why they can be a bit tricky, because when you're having a conversation, again, you're speaking, it's a very different skill. You may not be thinking exactly about it, but you hear these different prepositions being used, and perhaps you end up using of instead of over in a certain context. Again, most people will understand what you're talking about, but it goes back to fine-tuning your speaking fluency, to have influence over someone, to be a positive or a good influence on someone, and then maybe to be under the influence of someone or something. But most of the time, it's like a something, like you are under the influence of, I mentioned alcohol is a common collocation that you may hear. Here's the next one. So I know that was a lot that I just gave you as far as influence goes. We need to review our healthcare policies, the national level. So when thinking about government in this case, you may hear this phrase, the national level. And I think if you kind of piece it together, it's going to make sense, because the noun that we're talking about is level. We need to review our healthcare policies, the national level. Well done, nice. Samuel, Lolly, Bianca, we're talking about at. at the national level. You read a news article, this is something that you will you'll come across this phrase, at the national level. And just to really put a point on this, at the level, there are different adjectives that you could put in there. Here are some examples. Understanding the impact of climate change at the national level. We just mentioned that. State play, navigating immigration policy at the state level. So depending on the country you live in the US, there are different states. So you may use this phrase with state, like something happens at the state level. And finally, enhancing disaster risk management at the local level. So those are some words that you may hear with this phrase. At the national level, at the state level, at the local level. Great job, Stephanie, Sarah, Reza. Just want to give out some more shout outs because I see so many different answers. I love it when everything just keeps going and people are participating. Here is the next one. Everyone was captivated. The performance. This is a more of a grammar question, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But what word is missing? Everyone was captivated. The performance. This is another one that I often hear people, they make a slight speaking mistake. Everyone was captivated. The performance. And of course, I see so many excellent, wonderful answers. You guys are rocking it. So everyone was captivated by the performance. And yep, that's right, Julia. We're talking about the passive voice. And that is why I said this is, grammar involved, because you might say you were captivated by something. You were amazed by something, or you were shocked by something. The passive voice, in this case, you might be thinking, well, why would you use it? Because often you're going to use the active voice, and you could say the performance captivated everyone. But you might use the passive voice in this case because it puts more emphasis on the action or the result. And I think that's why when you would say something like this, the passive, it's actually better. I think it's better to use the passive than the active and put the emphasis on the action or the result. Everyone was captivated by the performance. We were amazed by the presentation. She was shocked by the news. But once again, you're going to talk about like the passive voice, the object, the verb to be. In this case, you have those different participle adjectives followed by and then the actor. By something, by someone, and we're just going to use by. And then here's another one where there are two different words missing. Several years ago, I worked the city. A group of us were hired to work a transportation project. So work, you could follow this with, I think, a variety of words. But think about the situation, the context, because there is a specific there are specific words that I want you to use in this case. There are two different missing words. Several years ago, I worked the city. A group of us were hired to work a transportation project. So now that I see it, I think a lot of people, this is interesting because I guess there could be more than one response. And I'll explain this as we go through this. So what I would say, what I said is the correct answer. Several years ago, I worked for the city. You work for someone, you were employed by them. A group of us were hired to work on a transportation project. You work on something, like this is what you are doing. Now, for that first one, I saw a lot of people that putting in. And in this case, I understand that. I guess that would work. I don't want to say that is incorrect because you could say you worked in the city as far as talking about your location. This is where you worked. The reason why I think I would go with 4 is because of the next sentence, because it more aligns with what you're saying. I worked for the city, and what happened? Well, a group of us were working on this project. But if you say you worked in the city, that is not incorrect. That is okay. But the meaning would still be different, because in that case, you're talking about where you worked as opposed to saying who you worked for. I worked for the city. So again, a lot of great answers. That's perfect. And I think many of you got that next part. You worked on a transportation project. You work on a project. So I really hope that you learned something new. Let me give you a little review, and I'm just going to see if I can use some of these different phrases as I'm just talking off the top of my head. So I really appreciate that many of you were taking part in this lesson, because I think that's the best way to learn these phrases is when you take part in these lessons. And I really think that I try to make these lessons interesting, and I hope that I could say that you are captivated by these different lessons, because that I want to make them interesting. And really, at the end of the day, when it comes to improving your English skills, building your vocabulary, it is entirely up to you. It's really the choices that you make will determine how much you're going to improve. It is definitely up to you. But I would say really try to learn from people, maybe like myself, that are going to have a positive, a positive influence. That I want to be a positive influence on you, and really trying to think about others that I could say. I'm gonna wrap things up, but I do want to ask you, like I always do with these, how did you do on this quiz? Because I saw so many people participating in the lesson, and that is what I love to see. So I'm gonna put a little poll in there and just say, how did you do on the quiz? And say, I rocked it. And I'll put like a 100% emoji there. And the next one I did pretty well, would be maybe about 50%. And then let's add another one. I have some work to do, which would be more like 25%. Kind of gives me an idea as to the difficulty of these, because I always love it when there's like a bit of a mix, as far as, if I don't want it to be too easy, I also don't want it to be too difficult. And of course, I want this to be relevant. I wanted to choose phrases that you're going to come across listening to something or reading a newspaper, as well as phrases that you would actively use when you're having a conversation. And I just want to say a quick thank you to Rosanna for becoming a member and joining the community. Well, thank you very much, Rosanna. So let me know how you did. You can write to me in the comments. I always love hearing from you. And just keep practicing. Keep studying, keep learning, review these words and phrases. I told you, if you want to join our community, the email community, click on the link down in the description. You can access these lesson notes. And if you're already a part of it, I will send them to you and you can find them in your inbox. So it seems like, all right, so getting a little bit of a mix right here, but I feel it makes me glad that so many of you are like, yes, I rocked it. You did well, that you've heard these before. You are able to identify them. And I think, again, I will say, when you're seeing it, when you see it written, it is a little easier. The challenge would be speaking and when you're having that conversation. But again, throughout this lesson, I just kept saying these phrases over and over and over, because the more you hear them, the better. Because then when you're having that conversation, you're just going to use the correct one. If you're talking about something that's in the background, or saying that a decision is up to you, or referring to something that's happening at the national level, at the local level, and you're just going to use that correct preposition. So I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope that you learn something new, and I will see you soon for another lesson